I've been hesitating to write this down for weeks now. Part of me is afraid that putting it into words will make it stop happening, while another part desperately hopes that someone out there has experienced something similar and can help me make sense of it all. I'm a 33-year-old programmer living in Willow Creek, one of those small towns where nothing ever happens, or at least that's what I thought until about 3 months ago. It started on an ordinary Tuesday evening in late October. I was taking Luna, my golden retriever, for our usual evening walk. We have this route we always take, down Maple Street, past the old library, through Jefferson Park, and back home via Elm Road. Nothing special. I've walked these streets thousands of times in the 7 years I've lived here. That evening had this perfect fall crispness to it. You know that smell, when the leaves are just starting to turn and there's a hint of wood smoke in the air. Luna was doing her usual thing, sniffing every inch of the sidewalk like it contained hidden messages only she could decode. We were passing Mrs. Halley's house when it happened for the first time. 1 second I was just walking, the next I was somewhere else, except it wasn't somewhere else. It was right there, but different, more real. It's so hard to explain. It was like I'd been watching a low-resolution video my whole life, and suddenly everything switched to Ultra HD. The colors were deeper. I could see each individual leaf on the maple trees with perfect clarity. The air felt different against my skin, more present somehow. It lasted maybe 2 seconds. Then, like someone had flipped a switch, everything snapped back to normal. Luna was looking up at me like, "What's wrong with you, human?" I'd apparently stopped walking mid-step. I felt dizzy, disoriented, but more than anything, I felt this overwhelming sense of loss, like I'd been yanked away from somewhere I belonged. I brushed it off as a weird brain hiccup, maybe low blood sugar or something. I finished the walk, went home and tried to forget about it, but then it happened again 3 days later. Same walk, different spot, this time near the fountain in Jefferson Park. The strange thing was, I'd been smelling cinnamon from the bakery across the street right before it hit. Again, this feeling of super reality washed over me. This time, it lasted maybe 4 seconds, long enough for me to look around and notice that the park looked both familiar and completely different. The trees were the same, but there were flowers I'd never seen before. The fountain was bigger, more intricate. And again, when it ended, I was left with this crushing sense of homesickness, like I'd glimpsed home and then been exiled from it. After the 5th episode, I started keeping detailed notes. I'm a programmer. Tracking patterns is what I do. I noticed they always happened during my walks with Luna. Always outdoors, always triggered by a specific combination of location and smell. The cinnamon near the park, wood, smoke near the creek, fresh bread by the school. It was like certain smells in certain places were keys unlocking something in my brain, and the episodes were getting longer. By the end of November, they were lasting close to 10 seconds, long enough for me to really look around, to try to interact with this heightened reality. I could touch things, they felt solid, but with this added dimension of sensation I can't really describe. Once, I touched the bark of an oak tree during an episode, and I swear I could feel the tree's life, its slow, patient existence. The weirdest part, as soon as I returned to normal reality, the specific details would fade. I'd remember having the experience, remember the emotions, but the exact visuals would slip away like a dream. All I'd be left with was this certainty that I'd experienced something profound, and this feeling that normal reality was somehow less, like comparing a PlayStation 1 game to actual life. By December, I was having 2 or 3 episodes a week. Each time, the sense of belonging was stronger. During normal life, I started feeling increasingly disconnected. Colors seemed duller. Food tasted bland. It was like my brain had seen what reality was supposed to be like, and now everything else was just a poor imitation. I went to my doctor about it. He ran some tests, found nothing physically wrong, and referred me to a neurologist. The neurologist did an EEG, an MRI. Everything came back normal. No signs of seizures, no tumor, no nothing. She suggested I see a psychiatrist, raising possibilities like dissociative episodes or brief psychotic disorder. The psychiatrist was a kind woman in her 50s named Dr. Chen. She listened carefully as I described what was happening, then surprised me by saying she didn't think this was a mental health issue at all. She'd treated people with dissociative disorders, she said, and what I was describing didn't match the pattern. People experiencing psychosis typically don't have the kind of self-awareness and analytical approach to their experiences that I was showing. Sometimes, she told me, the human mind encounters experiences that our current scientific understanding simply can't explain. That was both comforting and terrifying. Meanwhile, the episodes continued. I started looking forward to them, planning my walks to hit all the trigger spots. Luna seemed to sense something was happening. During episodes, she'd sit perfectly still, watching me intently. Once, during a particularly long episode near the old oak in Jefferson Park, I swear she saw what I was seeing. Her head moved to follow something that wasn't there in normal reality. The longest episode happened just last week. It lasted nearly 20 seconds, long enough for me to walk several steps in this other reality. I was near the creek behind the library. The smell of wood smoke from someone's chimney triggered it. The creek transformed from a narrow, somewhat polluted stream to a vibrant, clear river. The bare winter trees bloomed with leaves and flowers I've never seen before. The sky was different. Still blue, but with a depth that made our normal sky look like a cheap painted backdrop. I walked toward the water. In this heightened reality, I could see every pebble at the bottom of the creek, every ripple in perfect detail. Then I noticed something that hadn't happened before. There were people, not clear, distinct figures, but shapes that suggested human presence, moving in ways that seemed both normal and strangely deliberate, like a dance or ritual I almost recognized. For the first time I heard sounds, not with my ears, but somehow directly in my mind. A humming that wasn't quite music, but had the same effect. It made me feel loved, profoundly, unconditionally loved, like I belonged there in a way I've never belonged anywhere. When I snapped back to normal reality, I was on my knees in the mud, tears streaming down my face. Luna was licking my hand, whining softly. The sense of loss was crushing. I sat there for maybe 15 minutes, unable to move, just trying to hold on to the fading memory of that feeling of belonging. I've started questioning everything. What if what I'm experiencing isn't some brain malfunction, but glimpses of something real? What if our everyday reality is the lesser one? I've gone down so many rabbit holes. Quantum physics theories about parallel dimensions, simulation theory, philosophical debates about the nature of consciousness. Sometimes I wonder if I'm somehow remembering a place I've never been. Other times I think maybe everyone has access to this heightened reality, but most people's brains filter it out because it's too overwhelming. Maybe what's happening is not that I'm seeing something extra, but that a filter in my brain is temporarily failing. The episodes are now happening almost daily. Regular life feels increasingly flat, like watching a black and white TV after experiencing IMAX in full color. I'm functioning, still doing my job, taking care of Luna, maintaining the appearance of normalcy. But inside, I'm consumed by this. I catch myself just going through the motions during regular life, waiting for the next episode. Last night I had a terrifying thought. What if one day I don't come back? What if I stay in that heightened reality? Part of me finds that idea appealing, but then I think about Luna, about my parents and my friends. Would I just disappear from their lives? Would my body remain here, an empty shell? I'm writing this after having an episode just an hour ago. It was the most intense yet. I was walking past the town square where they've put up holiday decorations. The smell of pine from the Christmas tree triggered it. 25 seconds this time. The square transformed into something I can barely describe. The buildings the same, but different, made of materials that seemed to pulse with life. The Christmas tree became something else entirely. Still tree-shaped, but with branches that moved slightly even though there was no wind. And instead of ornaments, it had these small points of light that seemed to be alive. For the first time, one of the human-like figures noticed me. It turned toward me. I couldn't see a face, just a suggestion of features, and reached out. I reached back, our fingertips almost touching. I felt a surge of recognition so powerful, it was almost painful, like reuniting with someone you love deeply after being separated for years. And then it was gone. I was standing in the regular town square, hand outstretched toward nothing, while a couple of teenagers gave me strange looks. Luna was pulling on her leash, ready to continue our walk. I don't know what's happening to me. I don't know if these episodes are a gift or a warning or something else entirely. All I know is that they're getting stronger, longer, and more frequent. And each time I return to this reality, it feels less and less real. Story 24. I never believed in ghosts. Not really. Sure, I'd get creeped out watching horror movies like anyone else, but I always chalked it up to an overactive imagination. That changed last year in my house in Oak Ridge. I'm still trying to make sense of what happened, and honestly, I'm not sure I ever will. It started small, so small I barely noticed at first. A missing earring here, a misplaced book there. Nothing worth mentioning to anyone. I'd just assume I was being forgetful or messy. I've lived in this house for almost 4 years now. It was my grandmother's before she passed away and left it to my dad. It's an older place, 2 stories with an attic. Nothing special, but it's home. Or it was. About 8 months ago, things started getting weird. I was looking for my favorite black sweater, the soft one I wear all the time, and couldn't find it anywhere. I tore apart my closet, checked the laundry, even looked under my bed. Nothing. Then 3 days later, it showed up folded neatly in my dresser drawer. I know that sweater wasn't there before. I'd checked that drawer twice. A week later, my underwear started disappearing. Not just one pair, 5 or 6 pairs over the course of a month. I live alone except for my dog, Jasper, so there was no one else to blame. And sure, maybe a sock can get lost in the laundry, but half my underwear drawer, no way. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I was sleepwalking, but I've never done that before. Maybe I was just stressed from work and not paying attention to where I put things. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. Then, my dad's friend Mike came over to help me fix a leaky pipe in the bathroom. He's this big, tough construction worker type. Not the kind of guy who gets spooked easily. As we were finishing up, he got really quiet and asked, "How long have you had a ghost?" I laughed it off, but he wasn't joking. He said he could feel someone watching him the whole time he was in the bathroom, said it was definitely a man, and he felt angry. I brushed it off as Mike being weird, but a chill ran down my spine all the same. 2 weeks later, another friend of my dad's came by to drop off some tools. He wouldn't even come inside, just stood at the door and said, "You got a man in this house, Riley. I can feel him." He hadn't talked to Mike. They barely know each other. That's when I started to get really freaked out. Around that same time, my childhood nightmares came back. I used to have this recurring dream when I was little. I'm hiding in my closet, and something's trying to get in. I can see shadows moving under the door, hear breathing on the other side. I'd wake up screaming almost every night when I was 7 or 8, but they eventually stopped. Now they were back, but worse. In these dreams, the thing would get into the closet with me, though I could never see its face. I'd just feel hands grabbing at me in the dark. I started waking up exhausted every morning, like I hadn't slept at all. And the bruises, God, the bruises. Small ones at first on my arms. I thought maybe I was bumping into things without realizing it. But they kept appearing. On my legs, my back, my shoulders, not just one or two, but 10 or more at a time. As old ones would fade, new ones would show up. Perfect fingerprint-sized marks like someone had grabbed me. Hard. My friend Taylor came over one evening to watch movies. She's always been into spiritual stuff, crystals, tarot cards, that kind of thing. The moment she walked in, her face went pale. She stopped in the middle of my living room and wouldn't go any further. "There's something here, Riley," she whispered. "Something really dark. I can feel it everywhere." I tried to laugh it off, but my voice shook. "It's probably just my collection," I said, pointing to my antique dolls displayed on a shelf in the corner. "I've collected them since I was a teenager. They're creepy looking, I'll admit, but I've always loved them." Taylor shook her head. "It's not the dolls. I've been around those for years. This is different. It's a presence, a man." She looked up toward the ceiling. "He's watching us right now." We didn't finish the movie. Taylor left after 30 minutes, promising to bring me some protective crystals. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning I woke up to a crash from the bathroom. My mirror had somehow fallen off the wall and shattered across the floor. The screws were still in the wall, still perfectly straight. The mounting brackets on the back of the mirror were intact. It was physically impossible for it to have just fallen. That same day, the blade flew off my ceiling fan, just detached, and shot across the room, embedding itself in my wall. The fan was barely running, on the lowest setting, and has never had problems before. There's no way that should have happened. I started noticing scratches appearing on my walls. Not like animal scratches. These were deliberate, straight lines, sometimes crossing each other. They'd appear overnight in places I know were unmarked the day before. My dog Jasper started acting strange too. He's usually the most laid-back golden retriever you'd ever meet, but he began refusing to go upstairs. He'd stand at the bottom of the staircase, hackles raised, growling at nothing. Sometimes he'd bark frantically at empty corners of rooms or wake up in the middle of the night, staring intently at my bedroom door. I considered the possibility of a break-in. Maybe someone had a key, but Jasper would go ballistic if a stranger entered the house. And I'm such a light sleeper that I definitely hear someone moving around. Plus, nothing valuable was ever taken, just my personal things moved or missing. Who breaks in just to rearrange someone's stuff? I remembered the attic ladder had broken months earlier. It's one of those pull-down types, but the spring mechanism failed, so it never fully closes anymore. There's always a small gap where it meets the ceiling. I started wondering if something was coming from up there. One night about 3 months ago, things escalated. I woke up around 3 in the morning to Jasper growling beside my bed. The room was freezing cold, even though it was summer and my AC wasn't even running. I could see my breath. As I sat up, my bedroom door slowly swung shut, not like it was pushed by a draft. It moved deliberately, like someone was carefully closing it. Then the footsteps started, heavy, slow steps crossing back and forth above my ceiling, back and forth, back and forth. The attic floor. I froze, unable to move, unable to breathe. Jasper was going crazy now, barking and jumping at the ceiling. The footsteps stopped directly above my bed, and then there was a loud thump, like something heavy had dropped onto the floor. I finally found the courage to move. I grabbed my phone to call my dad, but it was dead. It had been charging all night and was at full battery when I went to bed. I tried the lamp next to my bed. Nothing. Power was out. In the darkness, I heard the attic ladder creaking, that distinct sound of wood under weight. Something was coming down. I grabbed Jasper's collar and ran. We made it to my car and I drove straight to my dad's house. I slept on his couch for a week. When I finally worked up the courage to go back home, I brought my dad with me. We checked the entire house, including the attic. Nothing seemed out of place, no signs of an intruder, no evidence anyone had been there. My dad suggested it was just the house settling or maybe raccoons in the attic. I wanted to believe him. For a few weeks things were quiet. I started to think Maybe it had all been in my head. Stress, lack of sleep, an overactive imagination. Then I found a pile of my missing clothes tucked into the far corner of the attic, neatly folded. My underwear, my sweater, everything that had disappeared. I hadn't been up there in months. There was no way I put those items there. That night, I heard humming, a low, masculine humming coming from inside my closet. When I opened the door, it stopped. Nothing was there, but the air felt thick, hard to breathe. I learned more about the house's history from a neighbor. The elderly woman who died here, my grandmother, apparently had a son who went missing in the 1970s. No one knew what happened to him. He was just gone one day. The police suspected he'd run off, but his mother always insisted something terrible had happened. She became a recluse after that, rarely leaving the house, constantly claiming she could hear her son in the attic. Everyone thought she was crazy with grief. Now I'm not so sure. Last month, I woke up to find handprints on my bathroom mirror, large, masculine handprints that were definitely not mine. When I got out of the shower, words were written in the fog on the mirror. Still here. I took photos, but they didn't show up in the pictures. Just a normal, clear mirror. I've had 3 different people now independently tell me there's a male presence in my house. People who don't know each other, who've never discussed it. They all feel it. They all sense his anger. The bruises are getting worse. Last week I woke up with what looked like handprints around my wrists and ankles, like I'd been held down. I'm afraid to sleep in my own bed. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm writing this because I need someone to believe me. Something is in my house. Something that doesn't want me here, or maybe wants me too much. I've thought about moving, but I can't afford it right now. Last night was the worst yet. I heard the attic ladder creak open around 2 in the morning. Heavy footsteps crossed the hall, directly to my bedroom door. My doorknob turned slowly, but I'd locked it. Then there was breathing, deep, raspy breathing just outside my door. I lay perfectly still, terrified to move. Jasper was whimpering under my bed. The breathing continued for what felt like hours. Then a voice, rough, barely a whisper, said my name through the door. Riley. No one else was in the house. No one else could have been there. I don't know how much longer I can stay here, but I'm starting to wonder if whatever is in this house would follow me even if I left.